Earth nearly died. After the Permian mass extinction, evolution seemed to abandon every rule. Instead of rebuilding the old world, it filled the planet with some of the strangest animals ever to exist. So why did life take such a bizarre turn? And why did only one group inherit the future? This is the Triassic, the strangest chapter in Earth's history. Around 252 million years ago, the Permian mass extinction wiped out nearly all life on Earth. From dense forests and winding rivers to the vast oceans, life seemed to vanish. But that was not the end. Little by little, ancient Earth began to recover. It was a planet learning how to live again. Where evolution no longer seemed to follow any familiar rules. After this apocalypse, who would be bold enough to write the next chapter of Earth's history? Could they have been the most terrifying creatures to ever exist? Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover the stories hidden deep within our planet's ancient past. Now, let's go back. If you traveled back to the Triassic period, you would probably never notice this prehistoric creature. Among open forests covered with ferns and ancient conifers, a small figure quietly emerged from the undergrowth. It wasn't searching for territory, it wasn't hunting giant prey. The only thing that mattered was surviving one more day. Ahead of it, a small reptile was busy searching for food. It lowered its body and crept forward, one careful step at a time. Its eyes never left the target. One well-timed lunge, and today's meal would be its own. But just as it was about to attack, it suddenly froze. It lifted its head, then turned and ran. Whatever had frightened it never revealed itself. Perhaps instinct told it that in this world, even a single mistake could cost its life. And so, it abandoned the hunt and disappeared into the forest. That small prehistoric creature was called Eoraptor, standing beside an adult human. It would have been only about 1 meter, or 3 feet, long, and weighed less than 10 kilograms, or 22 pounds. Far smaller than the image most of us have of dinosaurs. It didn't have jaws powerful enough to bring down large prey, nor did it possess armor or horns for protection. What kept it alive was its lightweight body, agile legs, and an almost instantaneous response to danger. At that size, Eoraptor was hardly a fearsome predator. Its diet most likely consisted of small animals, including primitive lizards, large insects, and other small vertebrates. Its teeth were surprisingly varied, suggesting it was an opportunistic hunter, willing to eat almost anything small enough to catch. In a world where food was still scarce after the Great Dying, being less selective may have been one of the most effective survival strategies. Today, Eoraptor fossils have been discovered in the Yhcum Formation of Argentina. When paleontologists examined those bones, they realized something unexpected. The earliest dinosaurs looked nothing like the giants that would appear tens of millions of years later. They did not step onto the stage of history as rulers. They were simply small animals trying to find a place in a world that was still recovering from chaos. And perhaps that was their greatest advantage. A smaller body required less food, moved more quickly, and adapted more easily to a constantly changing environment. As ancient Earth slowly recovered, survival did not necessarily belong to the strongest. Sometimes, being fast enough, flexible enough, and resilient enough was more than enough. But if even the very first dinosaurs were little more than underdogs struggling to survive, then who were the true rulers of the Triassic? The sun slowly rose over the forests of the Triassic. Everything seemed quiet, but here, silence was often a sign of danger. A young plant-eating reptile lowered its head to feed among the ferns. It had no idea that, not far away, a pair of eyes had been watching its every movement for several minutes. The predator didn't rush. It waited patiently, slowly closing the distance and watching for the perfect moment. When the prey finally turned away, it burst forward. Within seconds, the gap disappeared. Its jaws clamped onto the prey's hip. The forest echoed with roars and desperate struggling. But the prey broke free, dashed toward a cluster of rocks, and disappeared. The predator came to a stop, breathing heavily before quietly walking away. In this world, even a nearly perfect ambush did not guarantee a meal. That predator was Herrerasaurus. If Eoraptor was simply an animal struggling to survive, then Herrerasaurus showed that dinosaurs were beginning to master the art of hunting. Reaching 13 to 20 feet in length and weighing several hundred kilograms, it was many times larger than Eoraptor. It didn't need to chase prey for long. It does not need to chase its prey for too long. A burst of acceleration from powerful hind legs, a snap of jaws filled with sharp curved teeth, and two forelimbs with three large claws immediately pinned down the victim. It was a sequence of movements that unfolded in just a few seconds, shaped by evolution to end the hunt before the prey had time to react. Even so, Herrerasaurus was far from an unstoppable hunting machine. Every attack demanded a tremendous amount of energy, and if the prey escaped, it had to begin all over again. In the aftermath of the Permian mass extinction, food was still nowhere near as abundant as it would become tens of millions of years later. Even a small mistake could mean going hungry for days. Like every modern predator, Herrerasaurus did not succeed in every hunt. It only needed to succeed often enough to survive. Interestingly, although Herrerasaurus is often regarded as one of the earliest predatory dinosaurs, paleontologists still debate its exact position on the evolutionary tree. Some studies place it among the earliest true dinosaurs, while others suggest it lies just outside Dinosauria, as a very close relative of the first dinosaurs. Whichever view proves correct, it does not change the fact that Herrerasaurus represented a major step forward for terrestrial predators. Looking at Herrerasaurus, it would be easy to believe it was born to rule. It was faster, stronger, and far more formidable than Eoraptor. But the Triassic was not a world where being the best hunter was enough to rule. The world of the Triassic was slowly changing. The earliest dinosaurs were no longer appearing only in isolated forests and ancient floodplains. They were beginning to spread farther, adapt to a wider range of environments, and gradually expand their range. Among them was one species that proved dinosaurs could do more than simply survive. they could succeed. That species was Calophysis. As the first light of dawn reached the ground, a group of Calophysis quietly moved through the ferns. They were not terrifying giants. Each individual measured about 10 feet in length and weighed between 33 to 66 pounds. Their slender bodies, long legs, and lightweight skeletons allowed them to move with remarkable speed. They were not built to confront massive prey. Instead, they searched for easier opportunities. A primitive lizard emerging from its hiding place, a slow-moving amphibian along the water's edge, or any small animal that let its guard down could become a meal. Calophysis was not the strongest predator, but it knew how to take advantage of every opportunity its environment offered. That may also explain why it appeared across a much wider area than the earliest dinosaurs. Its compact body, quick movements, and flexible hunting strategy allowed it to adapt to many different environments. For the first time, dinosaurs were no longer confined to the edges of the ecosystem. They were steadily expanding their presence. But just as everything seemed to be going perfectly, paleontologists uncovered a mystery. At Ghost Ranch in present-day New Mexico, hundreds of Calophysis skeletons were found packed together within the same layer of rock. What caused so many individuals to die in one place? Perhaps a prolonged drought forced them to gather around the last remaining water source before a sudden flood swept through. Or perhaps they had already been living close together and were buried by a single catastrophic event. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened, but Ghost Ranch revealed that Calophysis may have existed in far greater numbers than anyone had once imagined. That discovery raised another question. If so many individuals regularly stayed close together, did they hunt in groups? If they truly moved as a group, even fast-moving prey would have struggled to escape. One individual might startle its target, but several approaching from different directions would have been an entirely different challenge. The presence of an entire group alone could create pressure that a solitary predator never could. Even so, whether they actually coordinated their hunts or simply gathered where food was abundant remains an unanswered question. Ghost Ranch also sparked another famous debate. For many years, several small skeletons found inside the body cavity of an adult Calophysis were considered evidence that it had eaten its own young. That image quickly appeared in books and documentaries around the world, but when the fossils were re-examined using modern techniques, scientists realized those small skeletons most likely belonged to a different reptile rather than juvenile Calophysis. One of the most famous stories of cannibal dinosaurs was probably nothing more than a misunderstanding that lasted for decades. Looking at coelophysis, everything suggested that dinosaurs were moving in the right direction. They were becoming more widespread, adapting more successfully, and growing increasingly common across Pangaea. It almost seemed as though the age of dinosaurs had already begun. By the late Triassic, every day began with the same journey. As the first light reached the forests of Pangaea, a herd of Plateosaurus quietly moved toward fresh woodland. They were not searching for adventure, they were searching for leaves. A fully grown Plateosaurus could stretch 8 to 10 meters, or 26 to 33 feet, in length and weigh more than 2 tons. A body that size demanded an enormous amount of food, so the herd rarely stayed in one place for long. When one patch of forest had been stripped of reachable branches, it was time to keep moving. No one knows whether Plateosaurus lived in family groups as complex as modern mammals, but with bodies this large and little speed to outrun danger, staying close together was almost certainly the safest strategy. The adults naturally surrounded the smaller juveniles as the herd crossed open ground, because even a few extra steps away could mean the difference between safety and disaster. But they were not the only ones beginning the day hungry. Somewhere beyond the trees, another hunter had also set out in search of its next meal. As the adults reached their long necks into the canopy, one young Plateosaurus became distracted by a cluster of fresh leaves growing just beyond the edge of the herd. Step by step, it wandered farther away, unaware that the familiar sounds of its family were beginning to fade. To the youngster, it was only another meal. To something watching from the shadows, it was an opportunity. The forest suddenly fell silent. Then, without warning, Lillian Sternus burst from the undergrowth. Built for speed rather than brute strength, it did not challenge the towering adults. It had been waiting for exactly this moment, a young dinosaur, alone. The chase lasted only seconds. The juvenile had neither the size nor the experience to escape. Within moments, the forest was quiet again. The herd of Plateosaurus kept moving. They never stopped. They had no idea what had just happened. They remained focused on finding enough food before nightfall. For the young Plateosaurus left behind, there would be no more journeys with its family. That is the side of Plateosaurus we rarely imagine. Becoming gigantic solved one problem by opening another. Reaching food that other animals could not was a remarkable advantage. But raising young in a world filled with opportunistic predators was a challenge that no amount of size could completely erase. Every adult in the herd was once a juvenile that somehow survived countless days exactly like this. Watching the herd disappear into the distance, it would have been easy to believe that dinosaurs were finally taking control of ancient Earth. But the Triassic still belonged to forces far greater than dinosaurs alone. But the Triassic still had one great surprise left. Throughout this journey, we have followed the rise of the dinosaurs. They became larger, faster, more widespread. Every sign seemed to suggest that their age had already begun. But if you had actually stood in a late Triassic forest, you would probably have realized that you had been watching the wrong main character. A young Plateosaurus wandered away from the herd to feed on low shrubs along the edge of the forest. There was no warning, no roar. In an instant, a massive dark shape burst from between the trees. The first bite knocked the young dinosaur to the ground. Powerful shakes tore through its body before it even had a chance to stand again. The attack ended so quickly that the rest of the herd could do little more than flee. The victor did not give chase. It already had enough to eat. That predator was Prehistoric. While dinosaurs were still gradually expanding their range, this animal was one of the most formidable predators on land. Reaching about 23 feet in length and weighing close to a ton, it was not a dinosaur at all. Instead, it belonged to the Pseudosuchia, the branch that includes the close relatives of modern crocodilians. For most of the Triassic, it was the crocodilian lineage, not the dinosaurs, that held the advantage. Prehistoric did not have to be the fastest. It did not have to hunt constantly. Its enormous size, powerful jaws, and large teeth were enough to make almost every nearby animal potential prey. For the earliest dinosaurs, survival was not simply a matter of competing with one another. They also had to grow up in a world that already belonged to predators like Prehistoric. Every time a young dinosaur wandered away from the herd, it could become the perfect opportunity for an ambush. But the rulers of the Triassic were not limited to the land. Only a few steps away, along the riverbank, another surprise was waiting. The surface of the water was so still that it seemed lifeless. A small reptile lowered its head to drink. Then the water rippled. A long snout suddenly burst upward, seized the unsuspecting animal, and pulled it beneath the murky water. The entire encounter lasted only a few seconds. At first glance, the animal looked almost identical to a modern crocodilian. It had a long body, short legs, a powerful tail, and waited patiently beside the water before launching a sudden attack. But a closer look revealed something strange. Its nostrils were not at the tip of its snout like those of modern crocodilians. Instead, they were positioned close to its eyes. This prehistoric creature was a phytosaur. Although it looked remarkably like a crocodilian, it was not one. The two groups evolved from entirely different branches, yet arrived at almost the same body design because they faced the same challenge: how to become an efficient ambush predator in the water. It is one of the clearest examples of convergent evolution. When the environment presents the same problem, evolution can sometimes produce remarkably similar solutions, even in animals that are only distantly related. That is what truly made the Triassic so strange. The animals that looked like crocodilians were not crocodilians. The rulers of the land were not dinosaurs. And the animals we now associate with more than 160 million years of dominance were, at this point in history, still learning how to survive in the shadow of other rivals. If you looked only at the predators and the struggle for survival, the Triassic might not seem very different from other periods in Earth's history. But walk just a few hundred meters farther, and you would find yourself in a world where evolution no longer seemed to follow any familiar rules. Here, nature was not simply producing stronger animals. It was constantly experimenting with strange new designs, as if trying every possible way to fill the empty spaces left behind by the greatest mass extinction. One of the strangest experiments was Tanistropheus. At first glance, almost all you notice is its neck. It was longer than the rest of its body, built from only about 13 extraordinarily elongated vertebrae rather than dozens of smaller ones like those of a modern giraffe. Such a design seems incredibly risky. A single injury to the neck could threaten the entire animal. So why did evolution keep it? Today, growing evidence suggests that Tanistropheus lived along coastlines. Instead of moving its entire body close to its prey and disturbing the water, it only had to extend its remarkably long neck before suddenly snapping up fish or other small aquatic animals. What appeared to be an impractical design became a highly effective hunting tool in exactly the right environment. But nature was not finished yet. Along the shallow waters lived Eretmorhippus, with its strange flattened snout and eyes so small that vision may no longer have been its most important sense. In murky water, seeing clearly is not always an advantage. Instead, many scientists suggest that Eretmorhippus may have detected the movements of prey using specialized sensory structures in its snout, much like the modern platypus searches for food in water, where almost nothing can be seen. It did not need to see the world. It sensed the world. Then, looking up into the trees, you would discover an even more puzzling animal. Drepanosaurus. Its tail ended in a powerful hook that functioned almost like an anchor. Its unusually curved forelimbs carried a large claw that worked much like a climbing hook. It slowly moved along tree trunks and through narrow branches that almost no other reptile could exploit. This was not an early version of a monkey or a gecko. It was an entirely separate evolutionary branch, a body design that had never appeared before and would never appear again. That is what truly made the Triassic the strangest chapter in the history of ancient Earth. After the greatest mass extinction ever recorded, nature no longer seemed to follow a single path. For tens of millions of years, every lineage found its own way to survive. Some grew enormous, some became formidable predators, others evolved into body plans unlike anything the world had ever seen. It seemed that the Triassic had finally found its balance. But then, ancient Earth changed once again. A series of massive eruptions from the Central Atlantic magmatic province released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere over millions of years. The climate became increasingly extreme. Ecosystems gradually collapsed, and the animals that had once ruled the world disappeared one by one. But when the stage was finally empty, who was still standing? It was from that empty world that dinosaurs finally began to rise and take control of ancient Earth. The strangest age in Earth's history had come to an end, and at last, the age of dinosaurs had truly begun. Be sure to subscribe and join us on our next journey into the prehistoric past. Thanks for watching.